Okay, dead last review posted, and see full impressions. Nice bit of post-Gen Con coverage and classic Quins. I'm gonna go to bed. Okay, oh my god, oh my god. Oh. Whoa! Oh, what the hell? What? Supercomputer, disengage alarm. Why? Why? What?
Quins, demand for reviews is at critical levels. The people, they are going crazy for reviews. They just can't get enough.
Alright. Engage code red.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, let's talk about Shut Up and Sit Down's game of Gen Con in 2016. Let's talk about Captain Sonar. A game best described as Battleship meets a competent designer, and then they have a love affair and they break up, and the competent designer meets Space Cadets Dice Duel and they have a one-night stand and pretend it never happened. It's basically like nothing else you have owned or thought about owning, which I think is the best possible start a review can have. In the game of Captain Sonar, two teams sit opposite this grand screen, all working together, collectively controlling a submarine in a deadly game of cat and mouse, or sometimes cat and cat, mouse and mouse, mouse and sitting duck, or the very short game of cat and sitting duck. There are 4 stations on each submarine, which means if you have less than 8 players, players are going to have to double up and control 2 stations at once, which is a recipe for panic attacks because the best way to play Captain Sonar is in real time. Alright, so how often can you move the submarine? As many times as you like, or at least until the engineer states some variation of stop, oh god stop, or no, 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 no. And with that, let's begin your laughably brief Naval Academy with the Captain. Welcome to the Captain's Chair with the Captain's Board and the Captain's Pen. In fact, there are no components in Captain Sonar, just pens and white clear sheets, which means packing it away and sucking it up takes that long. It takes 1 metric click of the fingers to set it up. And it made me wonder why more board games don't do this. So, at the start of the game, you're going to take your Captain's Pen, you're going to mark where you start. You're going to start there, which means that yes, 2 ships could start on the same space. And from here, the captain is moving the submarine and basically playing the world's most involved game of Snake. You declare each time you move, head west, you might say loudly. We'll get to why. And then you're going to mark your new position, but you can never cross your own path. Head north, you might say, and you move north. And every time you move, you have to wait for the engineer and the first mate to do their job before you can move again. Now, why are you shouting? Why shout? Why be so gauche? Well, let's jump over to the radio operator. The radio operator is an extraordinarily cool job. You've got your pen, you've got your map, and you've got your $1 million government issue sheet of acetate. And every time you hear the enemy commander move, you're going to mark it on this sheet of acetate. Head north, head west, head north, head north, head east. And you don't know where they are, but because they can't go through islands, you're sliding your acetate around, trying to find out where they could be by process of elimination. You're also marking down when they drop mines or when they fire torpedoes, because this is all information you can use later or that you can use to zero in on their position. And when you have them, or you think you do, you pass that on to your captain in what will probably be an incredibly creepy stage whisper. Captain, I think they're right here. I think they're right here. I think we can go and kill them all with a torpedo and blow them up. Then they'll all be dead. Let's take a second to appreciate that this is already the best game ever. Oh my god. So, there's 2 stations left. You want the good news or the bad news first? Good news? Great! So, the good news is that every time you move, your trusty first officer is choosing which system to charge. In fact, you can't move again until they've given you the all clear. And so if you move once, you're 1/3 of the way to readying a torpedo. Fantastic! To use any of these systems, the captain, or sometimes the first mate, depends on the system, declares stop! Everyone puts their pens down, the captain resists the urge to say hammer time! and then you declare what system you're using and how you're going to use it. So let's quickly walk you through the cool systems. Torpedoes seem like a good thing to ask about first. In my life experience, phalluses often are. A torpedo can hit up to 4 spaces away, so firing one gives a big clue as to where you are, but fortune favours the bold, probably. You declare what space you're hitting with the torpedo, and the other boat has to tell you it's a miss, or a 1 damage indirect hit, meaning they were right next to it, or a direct hit, meaning they've taken 2 of the 4 damage it takes for them to lose the game. And you now know exactly where they are. Mines are exactly the same as torpedoes, but first you release them to any space next to you by declaring dropping a mine, giving the enemy radio operator a chance to write it down somewhere, but not exactly where it is, and then you can detonate it later whenever you want. Like if you lure the enemy into your minefield, and I've never seen that happen, but then I'm incompetent. The other systems relate to finding or not wanting to being finding/found any mound/more. Stopping the game for a drone lets you pick a sector on your map, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and simply ask the team if they're there, yes or no. Sonar is more involved and fun unless you're the radio operator, in which case it amounts to Satan taking a giant dump of a puzzle in your lap. You see, the enemy captain, once you use a sonar, picks 2 of the following 3 things: y-axis, x-axis, or the sector they're in, and tells you 2 of them, except 1 is true and 1's a lie. At which point, the captain who used the sonar is going to turn to their radio operator and go, "Does that help?" And the radio operator is going to look at their thing, panic, and then remind themselves that slapping the captain might result in them getting shot. Finally, we have silence, the system in Captain Sonar that no one charges until they realise it's the most important system in the game. Declaring to the table that you're spending your silence lets you move 1, 2, 3, or 4 spaces in a straight line without telling the other team which direction you went in or how many spaces. In other words, if they have you, then they lose you for a hot second. The final role we have to talk about is the engineer, who, contrary to what it sounds like, isn't so much the motor that keeps the ship running as the bag of spanners emptied into the flywheel to make sure it functions as a game. So, here's the thing. Every time the captain moves, they can't move again until first. The cool first officer has charged a cool system and the engineer has broken something. You're kind of the village idiot of the ship. Except you're also maybe the most important role of all. You see, let's say the captain goes north. You have to then break something in the north box. So if anything, you're not an engineer, you're a reverse engineer, except without the positive connotations of that phrase. Nuclear symbols are a good thing to break because they don't do anything. Yet, if the captain moves north again, you have to pick something else to strike off. And when you strike it off, the first officer and the captain can no longer use the corresponding system. So drone and sonar, mines and torpedoes, or silent running. The good news is, if you manage to mark off everything, but if the captain went north, north, and then east again, because you've completed this link chain, you get to wipe everything off. But the only other scenario in which you're going to be wiping stuff off is if you break the ship, which you're going to do by breaking everything in a particular box. So at this point you go, no, 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 to the captain. Don't go north anymore. Because if that happens, then you do get to wipe off all the damage on the ship, but the ship also takes 1 permanent point of damage. And similarly, those fun-loving nuclear symbols I had you marking off because they don't do anything, if you mark off all of them, again, the ship takes a damage and you wipe everything off. So to get around this horrible game, as the ship starts breaking and steam starts pouring out of all the vents and you can't use any systems, the engineer's going to start going, "Captain, let's surface," because when you surface, you clean everything off, and oh god. So when the captain decides to surface, it's lovely. It's really nice. You feel the sun on your ship. Everyone on your team puts their pens down so you can't play anymore. You get to wipe off that big long snake you made so you can go anywhere when you submerge again. And to wipe all the engineering damage off. And it's even fun because none of you can play. The radio operator has to just listen and memorize every movement the other team makes. So when you submerge again, the radio operator can mark down everything. That's fun for them. Definitely not stressful. And then you all get to play a mini game to let you go back below the water again. You have to do an engineering check. You have to take turns, only 1 at a time, guys, not all at once, drawing a nice line round a bit of the submarine. And you show it to the engineer, the other team, and they say, yeah, you can submerge. And it's fine. That's not stressful. Don't stress. Just don't think about the fact that the other team are going to be racing towards you below the waters, just rushing to your sector as fast as possible so they can fire some torpedoes into it. Don't listen. Don't even listen to them. Don't listen to the sound of approaching torpedoes. It's probably just a nice dolphin coming towards us to give us a kiss. The final thing to add is that if you can't muster the 6, 7 or 8 players that are really required to play Captain Sonar as a real-time game, making it a turn-based game is as simple as flipping everyone's sheets, and the maps get smaller, the systems require less time to charge, and you get this intense strategy game. I mean, lots of the puzzles were really designed to be completed against the clock, so maybe the best solution is to play it with a little chess clock app on your phone, but basically it still works with 4, 3 or even 2 very obsessive players. But for the rest of this review, really, we're going to be reviewing it as a real-time game. And not just because this is the game I fell in love with, but because this is all board games can be, you know? Captain Sonar, the real-time game, is something where you look at the components and you want to know more. The first thing you do is all the players name the submarine, which is funny. The rules explanation is thought-provoking. I've lost my pen. You start playing and it's tense. Then you finish playing and you just talk about it. And then your friends go home and you keep thinking about it. And if it's 2011, you start a website called Shut Up and Sit Down because you just have to tell people that games like this exist. I'm going to assume that you can see how the concept of Captain Sonar is as fun as it is. So let me just do my job a bit and let you know why it's exactly as fun as it is to play when you're actually experiencing it. And the reason why is really, this is nothing more or less than an immaculate co-op game where everyone has their own perfect little interesting corner of the store. Everyone gets to feel important and special. Everyone can doom or save their team depending on how well they do. And of course you're going to want to try all the different roles because they're all so different but all still completely capable of absorbing you utterly. And yet, this is more exciting than lots of co-op games simply because the only person who understands what you're going through is your opposition. And a human opposition is so much more interesting and engaging than the artificial opponent that co-op games give you, you know? It's like you're trying to outfox humans. You can trick them, you can predict them. And of course, there's an underlying base tension while playing Captain Sonar that is so vivid because they're hunting you. But the fact that this is a game about communication with human opponents leads to an incredibly tricky psychological reef for your team to navigate, which is simply how loudly you say stuff and when. Because obviously you're going to want to keep everything secret. The only thing you have to announce loudly is whenever you move or drop a mine, which means that if you're down here and you realise something, then you maybe want to get the torpedoes ready, you know? But that game of Chinese whispers is only going to slow your team down much better than to say out loud things, except you're broadcasting to the other team, you know? And this is where it becomes funny that someone is always sat at furthest possible point from someone else, and it's always the radio operator and the engineer. If the radio operator realizes that they know where the other person is, quickly whisper, we can fire. But in the time it takes, that could mean the difference between the engineer breaking the torpedo tubes or not. It's impossible. It's so good. It's so different. And agree with me, friends, that there is nothing better in board gaming than being introduced to a revolutionary new idea and having to get to grips with it. Wait, so you're telling me that we're working together, but every time we take a turn, something bad happens? Whoa. Wait, so I can put a worker anywhere I want and just have that reward for free? Wow, what if someone else wants to go there? Wait, I don't understand. Then how do we know which players are loyal and which ones are spies? And now it's 2016, and I'm playing Captain Sonar, and I'm saying things like, wait, but once the other team works out where you are, they'll know where you are for the rest of the game unless you do something about it. It's perfect. And incidentally, that thing I just mentioned about figuring out exactly where you are gives Captain Sonar a really interesting arc. And you know we love board games with an arc here at Shut Up and Sit Down with different phases because they're interesting. But I mean, in this game specifically, when you start, you have no idea where the other team are. And then you gradually narrow that down. And then maybe you go for that first approach where you come towards each other and then you exchange fire and you get confirmation and then you know exactly where they are and then you're just charging systems and shit. Then someone blows up. And then you talk about it, and you just put the game down and you relax and you talk about your personal experience that you didn't have time to share because, of course, this is a real-time game about secrecy. And then, oh yeah. And then the person who owns the game pops up in the box and goes, oh, by the way, there are different maps. There are different maps with different rules. It's recommended, in fact, that you play them not quite as a campaign, but in sequence because they get gradually more complicated. The Bravo map is very similar, but with less islands, so it's harder to pin the other team down. Working all your way up to, where is it? Ooh. The Arctic map, which has gaps in the ice, and those are the only places that you can surface without taking damage. So once you're pootling around in the middle, the captain already has to start thinking about asking the engineer which of these ice holes you can get back to. You might have noticed that there are 6 systems on the sheet. One I didn't explain, that's the scenario thing, which is gonna relate to different scenarios like Echo Map, where there are mines already built around the map and any team can detonate any of them at any point. And by the way, this game sold out its first print run in France, which means that Matago are probably going to do an expansion because they're a publisher that likes expansions. That means more maps and more to look forward to. And if you're like me and you have a disease, then you'll be excited to buy Captain Sonar purely so you can buy an expansion for it later. What the hell is wrong with me? But as far as talking goes, I think I can actually stop talking, you know? Sometimes we have to explain why games are fun, but sometimes a game speaks for itself, and this is one that shouts for itself. All I need to do is tell you that, yeah, it's as fun as it looks. And I mean, obviously Shut Up and Sit Down recommends, but rather than ending with that, I just want to end with a story, because board games are about sharing moments, sharing stories, and we were ending one game. And after that initial chase with the 2 submarines start closing in on each other and they fire, we fired, and it was a direct hit. And they fired, and all their calculations meant that they were just 1 square off, leading to an indirect hit. And in that sudden juking where they're running away and then we're trying to charge our torpedoes, the captain says, stop. And he turns to his sonar person and says, do we still have them? And the sonar operator says, yeah. He turns to the engineer. The system's green. Yeah. First mate, is the tube loaded? Yeah. And he said, fire. And we blew them out of the water and we won the game. But believe it or not, that's not the point of that story. The point is that that was such an awesome moment for our crew to share. A moment of unity and work together, and then just such precision together. It was perfect. It was really perfect. And that's a moment that we'll always remember and we'll always share. And yeah, that's what Shut Up and Sit Down is about. So what do you think, supercomputer? Were we right to make Captain Sonar our game of Gen Con 2016?
Yes, there are several gay cons. Would you like to go to one?
No, but I don't...
Updating employee database. Please rate your homophobia on a scale of 1 to 5.
How many times? I'm not a homophobe.
1 is a casual homophobe and 5 is I put the oh no in homophobe.
There is no oh no in homophobe.
Updating dictionary. Please tell me how many no's are in homophobe.
Gee, just never mind. Just invoice the company for 1 red light bulb.
Affirmative. Searching for red light bulbs on Bing.
Oh,